Hello, my beautiful friends and loyal listeners. It's always a pleasure to spend my time with you on the airwaves. I am live in Atlantic City at the very famous celebrity hotspot Ocean Casino Resort. And I'm excited to say that Atlantic City continues to see expansion and growth amidst the lifted COVID-19 restrictions. And the destination offers patrons an exciting first-class entertainment, shopping, and beachfront experience all summer long. Now, Atlantic City casinos are a great and safe place to enjoy outstanding entertainment, food, shopping, beaches, and sun this season. Last year, AC was named the third highest travel destination in the country. Thank you for listening and interacting with me on social media. That truly makes it all worthwhile. You could follow me on Instagram at ZenSams with an X. We have a great show lined up for you today. As usual, a mix of celebrities, impressive citizens, politicians, and a little bit of fun. On today's show, I'm excited to say that we have the Scandal segment with Imran Ansari of Idala Bartuna Commons, otherwise known as ABK Law. He's going to be piping in from New York City, and we're going to be chatting about how Bill Cosby was freed as the court overturned his sexual assault conviction. What went wrong? Now, the entertainer had been serving a 3 to 10 year sentence in prison outside of Philadelphia, and in the name of the law, it was overturned. We're also going to be chatting about the Robert Durst case and how Robert Durst caught his wife with Jill Biden's ex-husband shortly before she vanished. Could he be the missing link? Stay tuned. Imran is going to cover it all with us. And what a treat! iHeartRadio's very own New York market president, Bernie Weiss, is coming on to chat about his new book called Ace It. I read the book and it's incredible. It's basically your 101 to becoming an incredible salesperson in today's digital world. Joining me next from upstairs in Top Golf Suite at Ocean Casino Resort is sports radio personality Anthony Gargano. He is Philly's favorite everyman. He brings on the passion, and he has been part of Philadelphia sports radio for over 20 years. I need his brilliance today to help me make sense of futures betting and give me some great tips on sports betting. Stay tuned as I make my way upstairs. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I am your host, Zen Sams, live from Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. We'll be right back with Anthony Gargano. Stay tuned.
Zen is brought to you by Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, Vice Cucina in Midtown Manhattan, Revere Securities, and Helen Yarmack International. Tune in every Saturday night at 9 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, or download the iHeart app. Text the word collaborations to 917-575-2321. Follow Zen on social media at ZenSams. That's Zen with an X.
Welcome back to A Moment of Zen, beautiful people. Right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We are live from Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, and I'm sitting in the famous Top Golf Lounge with breathtaking views. And in just a bit, we're going to be chatting with my good friend Anthony Gargano. He is Philly's favorite everyman. He brings on the passion and has been part of Philadelphia sports radio for over 20 years. And today, I need his brilliance. I need him to help me make sense of futures betting and give me some great tips on sports betting as well. Now, we know that steadily growing in popularity, futures are offered on most sports and horse racing, plus politics and entertainment. I actually researched this. I don't want to sound ditzy, so I started with understanding the basics. Ladies and newbies, a futures bet is when any wager placed on an event that will take place basically in the future. Easy enough? Major championships like the NFL Super Bowl and NBA Finals are very popular futures options, and bettors receive fixed odds on the eventual champion. Fixed odds. Really need Anthony for this one. So my next question was, how does futures betting work? Anthony again. But I did figure this much out. Futures betting odds can open before the start of a season and take bets throughout the year, with bookmakers adjusting those odds in reaction to season results, injuries, and trades directly pertaining to these athletes, as well as the amount of money wagered on certain teams. I sound smart? Well, yeah, because I'm explaining it. But can I actually pull the trigger? No, and no idea, nor do I know where to start. But Anthony is here, and he is the expert, apparently, because they say that you can calculate the implied probability and potential payouts for your futures bet with an odds calculator, or you could just ask Anthony. And Anthony Gargano brings big entertainment and sports news on Phillies The Fanatic during the workday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So we're going to go down and check out the activity on the floor later on, and he's going to give me that crash course on futures betting and the lowdown on basic sports betting, so I can look like a pro even after 3 glasses of wine. Nice to have you on the show, superstar. Welcome, Anthony.
Are you kidding me? You explained it perfectly. You don't even need me, all right? You got it nailed. You're right on. It is about the future. It is about throughout the whole course of the season, depending on certain happenings. You nailed it. What are you doing, Zed?
Well, Anthony, I didn't nail it because I still don't understand how to put this in place in theory. And so I want to know something. My question is, what are the most important things to keep in mind when betting futures? I can only handle like 3 major things. Go.
Well, when you look at futures, first of all, you look at the sport. Let's take the NFL for a second. So if you look at what teams, you want to look at the odds, who has the odds where you can make some money. So you don't want to always go with the favorite. And then you want to look at their team makeup. And so what additions to the team did they make? What growth did some of the big players, like maybe the quarterback, who they drafted, how that works? And then you want to look at their schedule. And you're going to look at where they're at in their growth. And you go, wow, let's extrapolate and believe that this team can actually make a run and maybe be a surprise team. So let's look at last year. Perfect example. Tampa Bay, you could have gotten big odds for the Buccaneers to win the Super Bowl. And that was before Tom Brady became the quarterback. But you could look at it and say, Tampa, there was a lot of rumors that they needed a quarterback. And there were some rumors that Tom Brady would leave New England. So I know a lot of people, or quite a few people, who actually believe that would be a destination for Tom. So they bet on Tampa Bay to win the Super Bowl, and they cash big, Zen. That's you. You're going to cash big.
What kind of cash are you talking about?
Well, some guys got up to 60-1. And so if you put, think about it, $100, you won $6,000 off of your investment of $100. And there's so much you can do with futures that as it goes forward, you can kind of mess around, take other teams. You could hedge your bet. You could add more to it if you like how your team's going. So it's a really cool way to play the games, and it gives you some fun. And that's what this is all about. We're at the Ocean, and their sportsbook's phenomenal. And so you have some fun with it. You go in, you go down, and it's something where you could root for all season long because every week you have your team that you pick to win, so you can root for them.
I kind of get it now. So as an example, the 2022 Super Bowl futures odds have the Kansas City Chiefs set as the favorites to win, listing them at the top of the futures odds at plus 500, which to my understanding means you win $500 on a $100 bet. Is that right?
Yeah, 5-1. Correct.
Got it. So when they say the Indianapolis Colts, on the other hand, have longer odds to win the Super Bowl and are listed at the bottom of the futures odds at plus like 2,800. So again, win 2,800 on a $100 bet.
So wait a second. How did you pick the Colts? Because the Colts is a great pick.
I don't know. I guess I have a horseshoe up in the right place.
So the Colts got the Eagles quarterback, Carson Wentz. And Carson Wentz the head coach of the Colts used to be with the Eagles. His name's Frank Reich. And Carson played really well on the Frank Reich. In fact, he brought them all the way to the precipice of the Super Bowl that was finished by Nick Foles. But he had his best year under Frank. Now he's in Indianapolis. He's got a really good team around him. And they could be a surprise team in the AFC to win that conference and get to the Super Bowl. So imagine this. You put $100 down on the Colts, 28-1, walking away $2,800. That's fantastic.
Wow, that's popping. Now,
I can't believe you knew that. That's phenomenal.
I do my research.
You do.
So betting, let's talk betting. Now, over the past few years, the emergence of daily fantasy sports has led to a renaissance for conventional sports betting, and the anti-gambling stigma that exists for decades is finally fading in our popular culture, opening a door for a massive multi-billion-dollar legal sports betting industry to emerge. And with sports betting now legal in many states, millions of sports fans will be looking to enter the betting market for the first time. But where do you begin if you're unfamiliar? Anthony Gargano again. Now, Anthony, I have to pick your brain on this. Favorites versus underdog. Tell me.
So in any game, you're going to have one team versus another team. Most times one team is forecasted to be better than the other team. So one team will become the favorite and the other one is the underdog. And all it is the math probability, right? So if you believe that team A is going to win 90% of the time over team B, the odds are adjusted accordingly. So it's really pretty simple. Now, just because a team is forecasted to win, it's sports, we're human beings, we're fallible. The underdog, and I've seen it, lots and lots of great upsets. And you just have to look at the team and look at how they match up versus the favorite and think, wow, might they have a chance? And then you get longer odds when you bet the underdog. So if you bet, let's take a favorite who is minus 200. And that's a pretty substantial favorite. And you can find it all throughout every sport. So team A is favored over team B. You would have to bet on team A, put 200 to win 100.
Got it.
Now, team B, if you bet 100, you're going to bring back $180 because they're the underdog. So your $100 bet nets you 180.
Got it. And if the game is a toss-up, what happens?
So the game's a toss-up. They call that even money. And with every sports book, when they're two teams, they call it a pick'em, where you could pick A or B.
Got it.
The probability says flip a coin. You would have to, they call it lay. So you would have to put up $110 to win $100. That's the cut for the sports book. They call that the vigorish.
Ah, okay. Now we're going to move on
to
let's move on to spreads, okay? So we can keep this linear. There are two main ways to bet on a favorite. Or an underdog. Is that correct? So the first is the point spread, which is a bet on, I guess, on the margin of victory, if I'm understanding this correctly.
You got it.
Okay.
And so it's a way to even the contest, right? So what odds makers do is they look at team A versus team B, and if they think team A is substantially better in some, and you could also have home field. There's so many different factors that goes into creating the difference.
Got it. And then I just want to make sure that we get through enough of this description here. Can you quickly touch on money lines and over and unders and totals quickly?
Yeah, sure. So the money line is what we talked about without point spreads. It basically is, hey, this team is going to win X amount of time, so they make that team a favorite. That's a money line. You either have favorites or underdogs. So your $100 bet, depending on what it is, if it's a favorite, you're going to win less. If it's an underdog, you're going to win more. Now, the odds are that the favorite wins more often. Now, when you look at totals, that's the amount of points that are scored in a game. So if you have, say, a football game, and they're going to make it 48. So they believe that 48 points are going to be the total points scored by both teams in the game. And you could bet over 48 because you think there's going to be a higher scoring game, and you could bet for it's going to be 49 or over, or you bet under if you think it's more of a defensive game.
Got it. And then bettors can then wager on whether or not the game will go over or under the total. Got it.
And most people like to bet over because it's about human achievement, right? You want to see people score. So that's why most people bet over.
Wow. Well, Anthony, I have learned so much in just a short 12 minutes here. And what I really want to tell the audience is how to place a bet and how to do it safely. So with legalized sports betting spreading across America, sports bettors have never had more options to take advantage of. And we always recommend making sure that you are dealing with a trusted sports book. And of course, we know that William Hill right here at Ocean Casino Resort is one of the most trusted sports books. What do you feel about Ocean Casino and William Hill and how you place your bets? Is this one of your comfort zones?
Oh, without a doubt. It's so easy. It's safe. You know that you're going to get your money if you win. And that's the kind of environment that you want to be in. And look, it's all supposed to be for fun and amusement. And you go in, and if I have my $50 and I put my $50 on my team, I tell the teller, they give me a ticket, I hold on to the ticket. If my team wins, I go back to the teller and they give me my cash. And it's really easy and it's fun and safe. And that's the way to do it. You're not getting into any trouble. It's perfect. And that's why the legal sports betting is fantastic. And it's fun. Everybody loves sports.
Everybody loves sports.
To have a little skin for your team.
There you go. Guys, you heard it first right here on A Moment of Zen on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. That was Anthony Gargano live from Ocean Casino Resort in Topgolf Swing Suite right next to me. And we just had a crash course on all the fun stuff and how to do this the safe way. And in the end, you have the final say on how much to risk on a game. But a good rule is to risk only what you can afford to lose. Sports betting is a marathon, not a sprint. There will be good days and bad days. As a result, we recommend a flat betting approach. This means betting the same amount on every game and risking only 1% to 5% of your bankroll per play. And the bankroll is the starting amount you have at your disposal to bet with. And that is my final comment here, right here on A Moment of Zen. Anthony, thank you so much for joining me. It was a pleasure having you on.
You're amazing, Zen. You even have money management skills. Oh my God, you got everything.
Thank you, Anthony. We'll be right back after this.
Zen is brought to you by Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, BETT Cucina in Midtown Manhattan, Revere Securities, and Helen Yarmack International. Tune in every Saturday night at 9 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, or download the iHeart app. Text the word collaborations to 917-575-2321. Follow Zen on social media at Zen Sams. That's Zen with an X.
He's such an awesome guy. What a treat Anthony Gargano is. And I actually learned a ton about sports betting. Now I'm back on my set downstairs live from Atlantic City at Ocean Casino Resort, where we have taken a moment of Zen on the road. I'm Zen Sams right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. Now up in just a few, we have the Scandals segment with Imran Ansari of Ardala Bertuna Commons, otherwise known as ABK Law here in NYC. We're going to be chatting about how Bill Cosby was freed as a court overturned his sexual assault conviction. Now, the entertainer had been serving a 3 to 10-year sentence in a prison outside of Philadelphia. Then it all went wrong in the name of the law. We'll also be chatting about the Robert Durst case and how Robert Durst caught his wife with Jill Biden's ex shortly before she vanished. That headline goes as follows. First Lady Jill Biden's ex-husband, Bill Stevenson, said in an interview this week that he may be the missing link in the decade-old mystery case involving Kathy Durst. Now, Bill Stevenson was a concert hall owner from Delaware, and he had met Durst while their families were vacationing in the Poconos back in the 1960s when they were just kids. And their friendship apparently continued into adulthood. Now, numerous books, as well as a Lifetime movie and an HBO docuseries, have documented the ongoing mystery of Kathleen, otherwise known as Kathy Durst, 1982's disappearance, and speculation that her husband, New York real estate tycoon Robert Durst, 78, has and was and always was involved. Now, he went on to describe the yelling and fighting that happened afterwards. Kathy vanished just 10 days later. He told the outlet that he absolutely believes his affair had something to do with Katie's disappearance. When asked whether he thought so, adding that he didn't regret his night with Katie because he was abusing her and she wanted out. Now, there's a lot of complexities involved in this case. And here to talk about it is legal expert Imran Ansari. Welcome to the show, Imran.
Thanks for having me, Zen. Always great to be with you.
Now, Imran, you're an on-air host and legal analyst on Law and Crime Network, as well as a frequent on-air legal analyst for Court TV. And this case has been something that you have been commenting on for quite some time. Apparently, years later in the 1980s, after his divorce from Jill, this guy Stevenson maintained his friendship with Kathy and met her at least 5 times in New York City to discuss her problematic with Robert. We know that. Now, with no body ever having been found, where is this case right now? And do they have enough evidence to put this guy away?
Sure, Zen. So right now, Robert Durst is on trial in LA for the murder of not Kathy Durst, but of Susan Berman. And prosecutors are trying to link the disappearance of Kathy Durst to Robert Durst as a motive for why he may have killed Susan Berman. They're saying that Susan Berman would have went to law enforcement, told them what she knew about Kathy Durst's disappearance and a possible link with Robert Durst. And that's why Robert Durst murdered her. But this all goes back to that disappearance of Kathy Durst, who was his wife back in 1982. And then we have that bombshell sort of article coming out in the press this week of Jill Biden's ex, Stevenson, basically saying that he had an affair with Kathy Durst, and that may have been the reason why Robert Durst allegedly murdered Kathy Durst. So you have this whole triangle. You got a lot of Hollywood involvement here. As you mentioned, Zen, there was this movie with it was Ryan Gosling, who was it was based on the Robert Durst story. It was Ryan Gosling was starring in that. It's a favorite of my wife for that reason. And then there was The Jinx, which was an HBO docuseries about Robert Durst and his legal troubles, where he infamously had a hot mic and he said he killed them all. And that led to the prosecution of where he's standing now. Not of Kathy Durst, keep in mind, although we hear that the Westchester DA's office may be looking back into that case now, but of Susan Berman. So that's where we are. So
Susan Berman was his friend, apparently, and what he basically silenced her is what the bottom line is.
Then that's what prosecutors are saying was the motive for that murder. Another legal twist here is that Robert Durst had stood trial for another murder and he was acquitted. And that was the murder of someone named Morris Black. He got off on that. The same legal team defending him now defended him in that case, and he was acquitted of that murder. He said it was self-defense. So Robert Durst, it's a crazy story here. And I think that's why you had Hollywood involvement sort of. But, you know, it's an ongoing legal affair, and we have to see what is going on because we are now weeks into this trial, Zen, and he's still on trial. He's in poor health. We're going to see how it plays out in LA.
You know, I'm having a hard time, understanding you have no body, and there's specifically with his ex-wife, right? Now, the only body that we have is the death of the gunshot wound of Susan Berman, right? And is there enough evidence to tie him to that murder weapon?
With the murder of Susan Berman, it's a circumstantial case. And if they decide to prosecute Robert Durst for the disappearance of Kathy Durst, again, that will be a circumstantial case then. So the prosecutor and law enforcement were going to have to connect the dots between Robert Durst in this trial with Susan Berman, but also if they decide to prosecute him, if they feel they have enough evidence to prosecute him for the death of Kathy Durst. Now, this twist with this information from Jill Biden's ex, this Mr. Stevenson coming out of the woodwork, that may be something that prosecutors may look at as some evidence to say that there was a reason or motive and that Robert Durst may have been behind the death of Kathy Durst.
This is a very twisted case of clearly somebody who has been able to kill in the past, whether it was in self-defense or not, who has clearly a bad history, a bad temper, and a lot of people are coming out saying obviously he did it, and there's a lot of brouhaha on the internet about Jill Biden's ex now being involved. So the Jill Biden of it all is kind of what's making the headliners. And this guy is coming out and basically saying that he is the reason why Durst, why she went missing, because it fueled his anger. But with so many years gone by and really kind of no body, it makes me feel as if this is going to go on forever. And the only real hope we have is if he goes down for the murder of Susan. Is that kind of where the focus is right now on the legal side?
Right. So, Zen, it really begs the question with this possible new witness coming out saying just 10 days before Kathy Durst disappeared, he had sex with her. Robert Durst came in, was angry. He threw a wad of cash apparently at Kathy Durst's face. Yeah. And Bill Stevenson runs out. So it really begs the question, where were you all these years? Why didn't you provide this information earlier to law enforcement? Because using Bill Stevenson's own words, he may have been the missing link to tie Robert Durst to that disappearance.
Yeah, that's kind of baffling as to if this is truly the reason that the catalyst to her disappearance, so to speak, and what fueled the anger for Robert to do whatever he did. I mean, but the reason is that, like you said, if you haven't come forward all of these years, then why now? Why is this, suddenly something that you feel that you need to be vocal about when it wasn't in the past? So then the question of credibility comes in. But I, without a doubt, couldn't imagine somebody making up such stuff about having an affair with somebody that's passed away, that doesn't even have a voice to defend themselves or has gone missing. So I'm hoping for the sake of karma that all of this is factual and that maybe he is the missing link and that they can once and for all put Robert Durst away.
Yes, and I mean, this comes out in the papers. We'll see if it actually makes it into legal papers by way of an indictment with the Westchester DA's office down the line. Only time will tell. But another twist in a Hollywood case, which has been making the headlines and has the public really on the edge of their seat.
Yeah, and now we have Bill Cosby. Here we go again, right? Now, let's shift the attention here to Bill Cosby. He was released from prison after the Pennsylvania Supreme Court overturned his 2018 conviction for sexual assault. And that was a dramatic reversal in one of the first high-profile criminal trials of the Me Too era. And basically, Mr. Cosby had served 3 years of a 3 to 10 year sentence at a maximum security prison outside of Philly. And when the court basically ruled that a prosecution agreement with a previous prosecutor meant that Mr. Cosby should not have been charged in the case. What happened here? How is this even a possibility, Imran? This is angering not just me, but a whole crew of women out there that were finally exhaled when they saw him be put away.
Zen, this is really a legal argument. So we know that Bill Cosby, in his deposition, in subsequent statements made to law enforcement and even the press, had some involvement in terms of the crimes that he was alleged to have committed. He was convicted of those crimes, but it goes back to a legal technicality. And although, those in the Me Too movement are very outraged, people are saying, how could this happen? It's really the law working the way it should be. And I say that because a judge on the appellate division there, an appeals judge, found that there was this agreement that Bill Cosby relied on to put away his Fifth Amendment right to not self-incriminate, and gave certain deposition testimony in a civil case on the reliance that he would not be prosecuted by that DA's office. What happens down the line? Well, we find out that the subsequent district attorney reneges on that offer and agreement, and Bill Cosby ends up indicted, at trial, convicted, put away. So what we have here is the appeals process at work. They found that he should have never been prosecuted for those crimes. So although people are very outraged, and we hear that Bill Cosby is out, I know he just celebrated his birthday. We hear that he had a dinner at a townhouse in New York. He was reunited with his wife after many years. Birthday. And although people may be outraged, it's our legal process at work. So an appellate division found that his rights were abrogated on the lower court level. They went into that and they found grounds to reverse his conviction. Is his legal troubles over? Well, I believe that there are possible civil suits that he may be facing still. But not only that, Zen, Bill Cosby may now have his own civil suit to go after prosecutors after the state of Pennsylvania for prosecuting him in bad faith. It may be a malicious prosecution or prosecutorial misconduct civil case that Bill Cosby may now have against the state of Pennsylvania and that DA's office. Very interesting.
Extremely interesting. I mean, is there any way that somebody that from the past that basically had been a victim of his would come forward and be able to start a new case against him, or is this now done and closed and he's forever freed? Because I'm sure there's others.
Yeah, well, listen, I don't know, but it's all about the statute of limitations here. So let's say someone comes out and they say, well, you know what? Me too. And it happened to me, and Bill Cosby, sexually abused me or raped me. Well, it's all going to come down to a statute of limitations question. Not only that, it's going to have to come down to evidence and whether the prosecutor's office will find that this new accuser would be sufficient to bring charges against Bill Cosby. There are certain crimes. Now, rape may not have a statute of limitations, but certain other crimes of a sexual nature do have a statute of limitations. So it would all be that question, and whether a prosecutor's office would now go after Bill Cosby again. We've seen it in other cases where someone accuses someone of a crime like this, and then others come out like a domino effect. Has that domino effect now stopped for Bill Cosby? Time will remain to be seen. But right now, Bill Cosby is a free man. We hear that he's enjoying his birthday party recently and with his wife, and he's free. Well, he's also very old.
He's 84, right? Is that what he's 84? Well, look, the court's decision to overturn this basically first major criminal conviction of what, the Me Too era was defined by, came soon after allegations of sexual assault had been made against the powerful Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein. So these two cases were kind of highlighted at the same time. And of course, the whole Me Too movement was very empowered when Bill Cosby was put away. And a lot of people, although it stunned the nation, because painting a disturbing portrait suggesting that a man who had been brightening America's living rooms as a beloved father figure had been a sexual predator. And so now you have this core fan base that are celebrating. But either way, he's out. Not what I agree with, but the law is the law. And that's why we have Imran Ansari as one of our legal contributors here on the Scandal segment. I thank you, my friend, for coming on the show. It's always a pleasure having you.
Thank you, Zen. Always a pleasure being on, and have fun down at Atlantic City. Win big.
I'm Zen Sams. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this, live from Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
Zen is brought to you by Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, BETT Cucina in Midtown Manhattan, Revere Securities, and Helen Yarmack International. Tune in every Saturday night at 9 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, or download the iHeart app. Text the word collaborations to 917-575-2321. Follow Zen on social media at Zen Sams. That's Zen with an X.
What a treat legal expert and analyst Imran Ansari always is. True crime is trending and very popular, and only the best of the best contribute on A Moment of Zen. I'm back on my set downstairs, live from Atlantic City at Ocean Casino Resort, where we have taken A Moment of Zen on the road. I'm Zen Sams, right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. Now, up in just a few, we have iHeartMedia's very own New York market president, Bernie Weiss. iHeartMedia New York has a strong cross-platform presence and includes a number of iconic brands and franchises, both broadcast and digital, including Z100, Power 105.1, 103.5 KTU, 106.7 Light FM, 104.3, 710 WOR, the voice of New York, that's us. And we also have iHeartRadio Broadway. iHeartMedia's success is also built on its unmatched array of talent, and New York is home to some of the country's top on-air personalities, heard both in New York and across America. And Market President Bernie closely works with programming, business, and sales teams for all station brands in New York and oversees the station's on-air and digital programming, all the while creating new revenue opportunities. He is a media veteran and has been with iHeartMedia since 2004. Under his strong leadership, the iHeartMedia New York sales team held the #1 revenue position for 5 consecutive years in New York market from 2015 to 2019. And throughout his career at iHeart, he has risen through the ranks. And according to Bernie in his new book, Ace It, the old saying, no pain, no sale, still applies. If your prospects don't have an issue that they need to solve, such as a pain, then you won't be able to sell them anything. And the digital era has brought a shift in the ways salespeople sell. And a good salesperson today deals with multiple communication channels, diverse customer background, changing business needs, and prospects who are increasingly well informed. For example, customers already have 50% have gone down the path 50% before they contact a sales rep, down that purchasing path, and it's a slippery slope. So if you dwell in the sales space as a salesperson or sales leader, what can you do to keep that sales line chart trending up? How do you build your sales strategy and ultimately get that sale? Well, the best way is to read Bernie's new book called Ace It. Hear it now directly from the expert himself. Welcome to the show, superstar.
Thanks for having me. Really excited. I love your show, and I'm really honored to be your guest today.
You know, I read the book. I did read the book, and I must say, very well done. It did teach me a ton and gave me perspective, specifically framing basically how everything you will ever do in life involves a certain level of sales, making this book a must for everyone. And not only are you a great salesperson, but you are also a great mentor to many. Tell us in a nutshell, Bernie, the 3 most important things to keep in mind to be an effective salesperson in today's digital world.
Yeah, so when I wrote the book, what I really wanted to do is make it really accessible. So I wanted to have a sales process that you can, in a book that's easily readable, where you can apply things quickly, that talks about stories and analogies, offers templates and tips that salespeople just literally can just grab and go. So that was really the purpose behind it. I think in sales, there's a few things that need to do to be successful. One of the most important ones for me is to create a routine, and that's something that's often overlooked. I'm not sure if you remember. You're probably too young for that, Xen, but in the 80s there were these 2 tennis players. One of them was John McEnroe, and he was this natural born tennis player. He was improvising. He had this feel for the ball. People loved watching him. And his nemesis was Ivan Lendl. And Ivan Lendl was pretty much the exact opposite. He was all about process. He was breaking down a point into mini steps. And he knew that, hey, if I'm really effective in every single step of my tennis game, my chances of winning are going to be higher. And my hypothesis in the book is that salespeople will be more successful by following in Ivan Lendl's path. If you are more process-oriented, if you are able to create a routine, for example, if you have a certain time that you have to reach out to potential advertisers, let's say by phone or by email, it's much more effective to really set this in your calendar and then stick to it over and over and over again throughout the week and every single week. So creating routine is number 1. Number 2, really up there, is to be prepared. You mentioned it. Clients and prospects have so much access to information now. So nobody is really willing to sit down with a salesperson who doesn't know anything about their business. So you have to, pretty much like you're doing clearly in the preparation for the show, you don't just have a guest on, you do research on the guest. And that's exactly what a good salesperson does. And number 3, I think, is attitude. I think also, again, the premise of the book is sales can be learned. Obviously, you need certain basic talents, but as long as you have those core talents, you absolutely can learn sales, again, by just following the process, by being disciplined. And again, I think those are some of the things I write about. There's many more, like being an expert in the category, in the vertical. But we can get into that.
We'll get into so much more, but I wanted to bring the audience back to a favorite part of the book that I loved, and it was in the section setting up meetings by thinking outside of the box. And one of my favorite parts of the book was when you recounted how you once worked with a very talented salesperson who thought she had tried everything possible to set up a meeting with a regional marketing director of a bank. And for months, she got no response. After many attempts, she somehow found out that that this prospect was an avid rock climber. And she invested $15 in a rock climbing rope and then sent it to him by mail with a handwritten note saying, I would love to hook up, quote unquote, and talk about how we can, take your bank to new heights. And I thought that was so significant. That's something that I have actually done in the past. She got a call, 2 days later with a compliment on her creativity, and then apparently a high six-figure deal in the book, according to you. But tell us more about the motivating psychology behind exactly that portion of your book, thinking outside the box.
Yeah. So the part of the sales process that salespeople struggle with the most, and I'm not just talking about rookies, I'm talking about experienced salespeople as well, is the part when they have to get in the door with a potential client, advertiser in our case. And I call this part, and my process is very client-centric, very customer-focused. It's not this old like pushiness that sometimes people, the old stereotype that people expect from sales. It's the exact opposite, really. But there is this part in the sales process, I call it heavy metal sales, where you have to try everything humanly possible over a short period of time to set up a meeting and really gain time with a prospect. That's really what you're asking for. You're asking for someone's time to sit down with them. And in order to do that, you gotta do this in many different ways in a very short period of time. You gotta call them, you gotta email them, you use LinkedIn, even snail mail if the situation is right. You can walk into certain businesses, socially even these days, more and more. So there's many things you can do.
Persistence is everything. I definitely took that away. And another really good portion of the book was nobody has ever listened themselves out of a sale. You claim that it's more important to understand than to convince. I read the portion where you really drill deep into prospects buy because they feel the salesperson understands their problems. And again, taking us back to if they have a problem to solve, then if you do your research right, you'll get that sale. Judge a person by their questions rather than their answers was also something that you spoke about. Quickly talk about that portion of the book. And I think, from your mentality as a leader as well, having the ability to listen, all of this translates to a great, salesperson.
Right. So good old Voltaire actually used that quote that you just mentioned. But absolutely, again, I mentioned good sales is very customer focused. And in the old days, in the old ways of selling, people would just go to a client, have a product they were just trying to push down, and that has completely changed now. You again have to do the research and then sit with a client. And in a typical good conversation with a prospect, that first time you're meeting them, a fly on the wall wouldn't know who's the salesperson and who's the client. It's really a conversation. And a good salesperson gets a prospect and a client to talk at least 60-70% of the time, and really digs deep and finds out what the issues are in a particular situation, and with that uncovers opportunities that they can then use to go back and customize a solution, and eventually in a second or even third or fourth meeting, come back to them and present how they can actually improve their status quo and alleviate the pain points that they have.
Yes, absolutely. And piggybacking off of what you said with Voltaire, which was a portion of your book, Voltaire was aware of the power of great questions even as early as the 18th century. And as you said, the fastest way to set yourself apart from your competition and add value is through intelligent questions. A really good portion of the book that I want to draw the audience to once everybody pre-orders this, because who wouldn't? You grew up in Austria in the 70s and 80s, and it stood with me that you only had 2 broadcast channels to choose from. And you said that you fell in love with an American TV show a program called Columbo, and you always loved how Columbo used his absent-minded persona to kind of dull the criminal suspects into this false sense of security by asking them questions that weren't threatening, using a relaxed conversational style. How does this apply to sales? Because in this case, we didn't want to let them know that they were suspects. And in the sales situation, you don't want to let them know that they are what?
Yeah, exactly. It can't be an interrogation. What less experienced salespeople sometimes do is they might actually prepare questions they are planning to ask in advance, but then they sit down with the client or prospect and then just kind of interview them. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. You're supposed to have a conversation, make a client really comfortable, and get them to open up. And one way to do this really effectively is to keep asking, like Columbo did, tell me more. And then just dig deeper, and eventually certain issues can be uncovered. And once you have those issues, you can convert them into proposals and customized solutions to address those.
And that is the full circle of your book. I think in reading it, it takes you down this transition of human behaviors, human patterns. It's almost kind of like a psychology session, if you will. I mean, I know it's called ACE IT, and I know it's very sales driven, and you have incredible insight into how to go about closing the deal. But you also do something very unique. You allow people to understand the psychology behind your recommendations. You're not just, stating it as so because that's the model you want people to follow. You're literally catering your advice to human behavior. And that is why your book is very different than the average, books on step 1, 2, 3, or the idiot's guide to being a good salesperson or things of that nature. So yeah, your book was very, very inspirational. And I don't just say that lighthearted. I say that for anybody looking for that incredible depth and insight. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That was iHeartMedia's very own New York market president and now published book author Bernie Weiss. If you're looking for a great educational tool to help you in sales, and sales are a driving part of the economy, you definitely must read ACE IT. It's a game-changing perspective. It is now available for pre-order on all the major platforms, and it's going to be available to purchase this coming September 7th, 2021. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. We'll be right back after this.
Zen is brought to you by Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, BETT Cucina in Midtown Manhattan, Revere Securities, and Helen Yarmack International. Tune in every Saturday night at 9 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, or download the iHeart app. Text the word collaborations to 917-575-2321. Follow Zen on social media at Zen Sams. That's Zen with an X.
Of old white men in suits. Her handler is Nathan, who took her in as a teenager when her mother Scarlett left her behind to go into hiding. And when Sam is sent to retrieve money stolen from the firm, she finds herself in a conundrum, forced to choose between her job and saving a child. On the run and with an army of Irish gangsters after her, Sam turns to a group of her mom's old comrades, Anna Mae, Florence, and Madeline, who are dressed in the same colors as Sleeping Beauty's good fairies. The costume palette is surely not a coincidence because they do turn out to be her fairy godmothers of sorts. The three women run an old library in a rotunda that's really a democratic secret society of assassins. They hide weapons in books by Virginia Woolf and Jane Austen. Gunpowder Milkshake is a bit of harmless fun, more a collection of passable action, set pieces sprinkled with some aphorisms about parenting, and there's a great shot of Hattie fiercely diving into the fray while brandishing two enormous guns. There's something exhilarating about watching Yeo and Bassett just be badasses, and Jillian is absolutely capable of anchoring her own action franchise. For those things along, it's worth the price of the rental. That was your movie review of the week. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Please do check out Gunpowder Milkshake, available on most platforms. We'll be right back after this.
Zen is brought to you by Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, BETT Cucina in Midtown Manhattan, Revere Securities, and Helen Yarmack International. Tune in every Saturday night at 9 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, or download the iHeart app. Text the word collaborations to 917-575-2321. Follow Zen on social media @ZenSams. That's Zen with an X.
Well, that's a wrap, my friends. Thank you for being loyal listeners. Many of you have already texted me for collaborations, and I love it. Keep those texts coming. You can text feature me or collaboration to 917-575-2321. Again, that number is 917-575-2321. Please follow me on Instagram @ZenSams with an X. I post daily stories, and you can definitely check out all the highlights there. Remember to join me right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, every Saturday night from 9 to 10 p.m. or go to 710WOR.iHeart.com/A Moment of Zen to watch fully uploaded episodes as of Monday morning. Remember to tune back in next Saturday at 9 p.m. I have an amazing and exciting lineup of guests, as always. Thank you for listening to A Moment of Zen. It has been an absolute pleasure being your host. Thanks again to all of our sponsors, Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, Romulus Entertainment, BETT Cucina Midtown and BETT Cucina Soho, Helen Yarmack International, and Revere Securities. Till next week, and remember, happiness is the only thing that multiplies when you share it.